choosing to listen today on YouTube or the podcast platforms and all that stuff. Thank you very much for your support as well during the week. For last week's episode, who was with Ella, I'm not in it kind of in respect to Ella. I'm not going to try and say her surname again because last week I thought about it for about 5 days constantly of how I could break down the Ella's Polish, by the way, just in case anybody wasn't listening. But I'd never seen this collection of letters before, and Ella saved me. I overthought it, and then as soon as I hit record, I just forgot it all anyway. So thank you very much, Ella. But it was a fascinating conversation. If you want to go back and have a look or have a listen, Ella's an anthropologist. She talked about different cultures, how different countries look at humanitarian aid, and kind of, I suppose, conspiracy theory has been in the news a lot. She went over conspiracy theories. She has to write like actual critical pieces on them, so she has to be between one thing and the other. She can't kind of side, even if it's flat Earth or something like that. She has to be, think of it in a way that why some people might think the Earth is flat, and so it was really interesting. But anyway, I'm waffling on. I want to introduce this week's guest. She is a chef and a nutritionist, and her name is Riadh Egan. How are you doing, Riadh?
I'm very good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, Egan is so much easier than the last surname I had to pronounce, but we won't go into that too much. Have you been on your holidays recently?
No, I'm down actually visiting family in Sligo this week.
Oh, nice.
So that's where I am. Yeah, I'm originally from there, and I live in Letterkenny and Donegal now, so I don't really get to see them, I guess, with work and stuff. And over the last few years, with it being COVID, it's just hard to fit everything in. So yeah, that's where I am at the minute. So down Strand Hill.
Yeah, I saw some of your pictures. It looks absolutely gorgeous there. That leads us perfectly into our first question of could you give us a short history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, so I guess my upbringing was kind of a weird one. My parents were very young when they had me. My mum was 17. So I spent the first 5 years of my life living with my grandparents and my mum and all her siblings in the one house. So she had 6 brothers and sisters, and then there was me. And then my little brother came along. He's a couple of years younger than me, but I also have an uncle who's 2 years younger than me. So it's kind of a strange, he's more like my brother, I guess. Yeah, kind of a strange one. And then we moved out when my brother was about 3. My mum was a single parent for a while. And my dad was kind of always in and out of the picture, I guess. It's kind of exposed to a little bit of alcohol and drugs in the household when my dad was there. So I think that kind of sprung mental health into, that's kind of where it kind of gauged from for me. But yeah, that's basically it. I moved out home back in with my granny when I was sitting my leaving cert. So I moved back in with my granny then, and then I left Sligo when I was 18 to go to college in Donegal, and I haven't really come back ever since.
Well, your accent
I actually sound like I'm from Donegal.
I was just gonna say it's not it's a Donegal accent, but not a obviously there's differences in accents in different counties as well, but the Donegal accent could be really really thick accent, but yours is kind of a softer sounding Donegal. It doesn't sound like a Sligo accent. And not that I could. Sligo's one of those counties, and it's the same as Leitrim, that I wouldn't be able to do an impression of a Sligo accent. Anyway.
Yeah. There's a towny accent that'd be very strong, but I never really had that anyway. So I guess I'm quite lucky in that sense because it's
good.
The nicest one.
Yeah, no, it's good. The accent you have now is really nice. It's kind of a nice lilt. It's kind of the accent an American would love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Americans love they love the accents as long as they can understand them, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But Donegal can be very hard. Hardly any of my family can understand my partner.
Really?
My granny can't understand him at all whatsoever. So he's so strong, and then it's strange. Yeah.
So kind of go back then, because we always ask when did you first become aware of mental health, and that's something that you've kind of mentioned already, and that kind of thing must be very difficult because obviously you were quite young at the time.
Yeah, I guess at the time I didn't really know what it was back then. but looking back on my childhood, it was always there.
Yeah.
But like going back just to referring to like my parents and the way we were brought up a little bit, like the drugs and alcohol kind of surfaced for a couple of years when I was younger. Maybe from when I was like 9, I think. And there was a little bit of domestic violence between my parents. So that's what kind of introduced my anxiety. And so nearly really you're on your fight or flight mode. And I was nearly always like that when I was at home with my parents for those few years. Like, so looking back on it, I was just so anxious at little things that children shouldn't really be anxious for, but we didn't really know what it was back then. I kind of carried that into my teenage years. And it was only really when I came to college that I became more aware of it, what it was. And like, even still now as an adult, I get very stressed around exams. Like I'm still in college actually. I'm studying masters, and I went back to finish my culinary this year as well. And exams are something that really brings it up. Like my leaving cert was a very stressful time for me, and that would have been the first time that I ever had a panic attack. But when I went to the doctors at the time, they kind of just, they just fobbed it off. It wasn't diagnosed until I literally hit my lowest point after college. But looking back, it was quite bad during my college years. But yeah, I think that's definitely where it stemmed from anyways.
I think I'm realizing more and more as I do the podcast, the amount of people who seem to have anxiety when they were young, and obviously we don't know what it is. We have no reference points for what it might be that we have. And we could say, people could say oh, you were nervous about something, and nerves is a different thing than anxiety. Like nerves is something that passes as the event that you're thinking about, like goals. You get through an event and the nerves go, but with anxiety it's constantly there. And it just amazes me the amount of people who seem to have had it when they were quite young, for a number of different reasons, but it's quite scary, and it's quite worrying to think that it might still be going on. And maybe, even though younger people might be hearing more and more about mental health, they still might not be able to, in their own minds, figure out what it is.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important to be vocal about it, because even up till a few years ago, like I was so into myself and afraid to express the feelings that I had, anxiety or depression. But now the more and more people talk about it, I think it's easier for young adults and teenagers to come out and get help for it, and just that it's normal. And I always say, be the person that your younger self needed, because there was no one ever to speak to me about that. And as I said, even I remember having a really bad, I'm going off a tangent here, but I remember having a really bad panic attack in college. And I was in third year at this time. And I took a week off and I went to the doctors, and he basically told me it was nothing, that was just stress. And no one should get that stress that they have proper panic attacks that you can't breathe from. There's something else there, and it was anxiety. But even till then, they weren't vocal about it. They weren't doing anything for young people to prevent it, or they're not even up to date in coping mechanisms. And I think doctors need to be, because it's just it's just hurting yourself. It's just like your physical health. It's just as important, if not more. So it's good that we have these kind of things like podcasts and people speaking out, so that people are more aware and they can get the help that they need.
Absolutely. And doctors need to be a bit more understanding at times, I think, but let's not go down that route, because I'd love to go down that route.
We can talk about that all day.
Yeah, a couple of episodes I did go down that route, and I really enjoyed it, and it kind of needed to be said as well, but we won't do it today, because I think that anyway. Do you remember actually? Like, how did the interest in cooking? Where did that come from?
Oh, I always wanted to do something with food. Um, my mum will kill me if she listens to this, but growing up, like, mum was the worst cook in the world.
Okay.
Honestly, she would burn boiled eggs or hot water in a pot. I'm not even
Yeah.
joking. So as I got kind of into like my teenage years when I still lived at home, I would have done some of the cooking. But and I said I wanted to be a chef, and I remember doing my CAO form with my mum, and she was like, "There's no way you're being a chef, unsociable hours, blah blah blah." And so I put food science and nutrition as my top choice on my CAO, and I was like, "Do you know, it's still kind of food,
Mm.
based around food." Um, and yeah, I went and I done that, and I did my 4 years, and I was working as a nutritionist at the time, and I just seen the culinary skills course come up, because when I worked as kind of like a freelance nutritionist. It was in a gym, and the hours weren't really set. You could kind of make your hours around your appointments. So I was kind of like, I'm the kind of person that needs to be busy all the time. Like, I like to keep my mind occupied, don't like to be sitting still. So yeah, I went off and done that then, part-time. And then it was really just in lockdown where I just started baking more and got really into cakes. I was working as a chef in a nursing home at the time, and there's nothing really else to do in lockdown. I got really into the baking, and yeah, I just kind of took it over. So it's really like since then, probably the last 3 years, that I've really started enjoying it.
It seems to be from someone who, obviously, I have to cook for myself, but it's not something that I would kind of do out of enjoyment. It's just to do it out of needing to eat in general. But from what I hear, it's quite a, if you do enjoy it, it's quite a mindful thing to do as well. It's quite a thing that you can
Yeah,
relax, and that to me, that strikes me as completely opposite to how I feel about it, because I'll just give you an example of why it freaks me out a little bit. So if I was like cooking like a Sunday dinner, right? We'll use it for example, or Sunday dinner. So there's like 5 different components, we'll say. The timing, I can't figure out the timing. And you know what? Like, because I have OCD, and I do worry about timings and stuff like that, the idea of it just absolutely freaks me out, and it fills me with anxiety. The whole idea of it cooking for someone. So can you relax when you're doing it? Is it something that you can do mindfully?
yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but you can, but
Right.
you have to like it at the same time.
Yeah.
And I understand where you're coming from. Like, timekeeping is a big thing with chefs, because like you can't just cook one thing at a time. You have to be constantly doing stuff. Um, and for me, it's timers. Like if I put something in the oven and work, like I have to put a timer on my phone,
Yeah.
because I could go off and be doing something completely different and forget about it. But once you enjoy it, I think it's mindful for me. Like, particularly bacon, I wouldn't be. I don't enjoy savory cooking as much as I do pastry.
Okay.
Um, and I used to be a breakfast chef, and I did not really enjoy it. Like, it was just like no. And as I said, I was a chef in nursing homes as well, in a cafe, and I didn't really enjoy the savory as much. It was more, as you said, just to like just of survival, like
Yeah.
just speed. But the pastry for me definitely is mindful. Like, if I'm anxious or whatever, I would just go out to my kitchen and start baking. And even just like painting my little cupcakes and stuff, like that can be really mindful and relaxing for me. But as you said, other people can hate it. But it's just preference, isn't it?
Of
Just like
course.
someone else would love drawing, like drawing just stresses me out.
Yeah, and I agree with you on drawing too. And but you put up a picture the other day. I think it was a raspberry and lemon eclair, was it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh God. Like, I'm not one of these people that looks at, like, I really have a sweet tooth, right? So that's one thing. But I'm not someone who kind of goes through, Facebook, Instagram, looking at food pictures of food, because I just think it just makes you hungry. So I don't see the point. But when I saw, because the thing about it was, right, because first of all, raspberry and lemon are just beautiful flavors, meringue,
Mhm.
whatever. But it was so delicately decorated, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
thanks.
yeah, no, it was really, and this won't mean anything to anyone who hasn't seen the picture, but I was just like, I saw people about an hour before I went to bed, and I was like, God, I would kill a man to have that. I would kill a man, because again, it's to do with the sweet tooth as well. But I just want to ask you a little bit about like the nutritionist side of things. It's an interesting world, I suppose, nutrition because of you hear all these different, like I was doing a CrossFit course recently to complete my level 1 on CrossFit. So you hear that there was part of it was nutrition, and you hear about like the different types of diets, the paleo and the
Yeah,
intermittent fasting. And it's such a I would imagine for a nutritionist, it's a very difficult kind of path to go down, to choose, what would you recommend the paleo diet? Would you recommend the intermittent fasting, or do you go down more like we were told about the 40%, 30%, 30% of the mixture of proteins and fats and carbs? It's quite a complicated world, and maybe it freaks a few people out,
I think it's online, and I'd say also just call it the food world and nutrition world. It's saturated with information. It can be so hard to tell what's right. For me, paleo and intermittent fasting and stuff like that, especially as a parent, they don't fit in with my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're long-term sustainable for my lifestyle anyway. But I just think in general, like going through the years, like there was a point in life where, I was single, I had no kids, and I worked in a gym, and it was actually a CrossFit gym, and was a nutritionist there, and that was my life.
Yeah.
So my diet would have been completely different back then. Like I was super muscly, didn't like, looking back, and I wouldn't think I looked nice at all. But at the time I was like, oh, I look great. But I had no life around the gym. Like I had no, like I wouldn't, even if I was here at home with family and they were getting a takeaway, it was like, no, I would never touch an ice cream. Like I was drinking peppermint teas and wouldn't touch like a bit of milk in my tea, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's okay if you're single or if you're a bodybuilder, or if you're whatever, but long term, it's not ideal. The rule that I really follow now is the 80-20 rule, which is like 80% getting your diet from whole foods, like eating your vegetables, eating enough protein, just really like a balance. And then that 20% leeway, just enjoying life, like going for an ice cream on a Sunday, like, maybe eating a pizza on a Friday night with your family. Like that's what we do every Friday night, make homemade pizzas at home with the kids. So yeah, I guess it just depends, but that is the one that I probably promote the most as a nutritionist, is 80-20 rule and just lifestyle balance, really.
I think like the 80-20 would make people feel a lot more comfortable about it, because like you said, we're all striving for different things, whether we're in our lives, but also in the way we want to look, and that whole thing of and I know people, I've had someone on who's bodybuilding and all this type of different types of diets and stuff. But for me, someone who's like 40 years of age, I'm single, but I'm happy to like I enjoy a sweet, now and again.
Yeah.
But you're right, like it's not just, you can have the sweet thing, but I think when people fall into the 80%, they kind of tend to kind of fall towards like less, vegetables, and more just kind of maybe, starchy and things like that. But that 80-20 makes a lot of sense. Like I was doing the 40-30-30, and I found it brilliant. I did it for 6 weeks and lost 6 kilograms, and it was really good. But again, there was going to come to the end at 6 weeks. So you kind of know that there's like a little light at the end of the tunnel when you can go back to having a bit of cheesecake. I can't pass the cheesecake in a
I love a good cheesecake.
I
But
absolutely.
again, what is the point in that? Because if you're constantly going back, like what, like, I think we need to find something that's long-term sustainable. Like honestly, like I'm a nutritionist, and obviously I'm a chef, and it's very hard. I'm a pastry chef, which is extremely hard.
Yeah.
Like there's no getting away from sweets for me. Like
Yeah.
there's just no getting away from it. Plus I'm constantly like inventing recipes and stuff. And I have my baking business on the side. I have to constantly be tasting things
Yeah,
to see if they're okay. I mean, everything you cook, you have to taste, because if it goes out wrong, that's on your back. So there's not a day that goes by that I don't have something sweet. And even if I'm not in work, I will sit at home in the evening time and have a square chocolate. I'll have
yeah,
dark chocolate, like, and some people are like, oh my God, you're like, you're training nutrition, you have chocolate every day. I do, because otherwise I will sit down at the weekend and I'll eat 4 bags of buttons if
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't do that. So that it has to be balanced, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. And like, God, that's what they're there for. You have to enjoy something. Like, there has to be something to life that you enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't like smoke weed or drink. So this is my thing, is to have some cheesecake, and I'm going to continue
Well,
doing
you
it.
have it. You
Thank you
deserve it.
very much. Permission granted. Listen, Riadh, have a break for a second. I'm just going to read out a quick advert and we'll get back to it. I'm going to get this right today. I swear I'm going to get it right. Okay. Fusion Training Centre, Monksland, Athlone. A place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. I did get it right. Sorry, that'll do. Makes a nice change. But listen, I wanted to ask you about this because our perception of chefs is very, it's all come through TV. I think, when you see like Mark Pierre White, Gordon Ramsay, all these people shouting and, everybody getting stressed out. And, I wonder if, cycles like that carry through, because the people coming through from a chef who's shouting and roaring at them, then they come in to be a head chef and they think that that's the behavior that should carry on. Is this all, just drama for us at home? Have you seen any of this in real life?
Oh, I've definitely seen it.
Okay.
100%, yeah. I don't think it's as bad as it
Oh
used to
yeah.
be. Um, and I think, especially probably since COVID, I think a lot of people have looked at chefing, and I mean, it's so hard to get chefs now. It really is. And I think they've kind of took a step back, and they're not really taking as much shit, oh, excuse my language,
No, it's all right.
as they would have done before. Um, like, I mean, for me, like, I've been word at by head chefs, and I don't take it. I don't stand there and take
Mm.
it, because why should I?
You're
Do you
right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I look at it, would you scream at your daughter like that?
Yeah.
That kind of way. It still goes on in kitchens, and I mean, some people take it, and I think you really have to have a certain personality to be a chef, especially if you're a service chef. Um, because it is hot and heavy in the kitchen, like it can be very intense, and there's just some personalities that just aren't fit for it. But I would say it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah.
That's
Because
the thing I'll say to you.
yeah, no, that's fair. And because we see of how it's portrayed, or maybe how the stories, the stories from the 80s and 90s of, drink involved and, people being so stressed out that they have to resort to drink or drugs or whatever it might be. And we've seen films about that. And there was actually, I don't know if you've seen the film Boiling Point.
Yeah, I have. I
Yeah,
recently.
it was, that was like, obviously that was a fictional film, but it was behind the scenes of what, for people who haven't seen it, behind the scenes of what happens on a night in a restaurant. What was really great about that film was it was all done in one take, which I thought was
Yeah, it was very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought Stephen Graham as the head chef was very an enthralling character, but that idea of drink and drugs and stress can obviously lead down the road of mental health. And I wonder if the stories that come out, they maybe, you said it's harder to get chefs now, maybe that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, I still definitely do think that it goes on, like the drink and drugs and
Mhm.
mental health, and it's used as obviously as a stimulant to keep going for the day. Um, because you could be working, like you could come in at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you won't get home till after service, and that could be 12:30 at night. So you could be there like over 12 hours with no break. It's impossible to get breaks in a kitchen, and they try and introduce it like for maybe a couple of weeks, and then it goes down the drain. You just don't. You eat when you can, and most people just don't eat at all. And you'll see most chefs just go out for cigarette breaks. And then they normally just will go for a drink or whatever after work if you're on service. I mean, what else is there really to do at 12:30 at night? And then they're getting up the next day and they're going straight back into it with very little sleep. And so that is what they just want to do on their days off, or take drugs to keep going. It is the reality of it. There is actually a very good podcast that's at the minute that I don't know if you've heard of. It's called the Burnt Chef Journal. And they are trying to, like, it's basically a whole thing about mental health and hospitality, and trying to like end that stigma and get away from the drink and drug side. But it does still go on, unfortunately, which is quite sad. Like, but it's just the industry.
Of course, I mean, it's the way it is, and like, I wonder that's why it does kind of pour down the idea of, just Gordon Ramsay being, I suppose, most famous, and him having been spoken to like that beforehand by Marco P.A. White, and whether it just continues down that road. And like you said, I hope it's like changing for the better. Would you like to run your own kitchen at any point?
Honestly, probably not.
Okay, fair.
No, like I'd be more along the lines of like a little bakery or something.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think a restaurant would really be for me, or like a hotel. I had pastry chef, but not a head chef overall, I don't think, or run my own kitchen unless it's like a bakery or something small like that. Especially because I have kids. I see the hours that some chefs put in, and they have absolutely no family life. I mean, most of the chefs that I work with, the women don't have kids, and the men never see their children. And I just wouldn't want to be like that, because I want to be around for my children's lives, and the hours are just not sustainable if you want to actually be a head chef and have a family. So it is all about balance for me. I'm more of like a production chef at the minute. So I get away like before the end of service. Okay. I don't do the restaurant service. I'm more like weddings and functions.
Okay.
So I don't be there till 12:30 at night, thank God, because it wouldn't work with kids. It just doesn't.
It's not ideal, but like, I wanted to kind of go back. You spoke about cooking at home, baking at home, and I know that's like something that relaxes you, and it's a mindful kind of thing, but it's something of like a busman's holiday. If you're in work, like baking away, and then you come home and you bake away again, like people would think like, the last thing I want to do when I get home is to do what I was doing in work. But obviously that doesn't seem to bother you at all.
Sometimes it does.
Oh, okay.
It just depends. It depends on the day that I've had, to be honest with you. Sometimes I come home and I'm like, oh God, I have a wedding cake to do for Friday. And like the last thing I want to do if I've had a really stressful day or I'm home late is bake some more. But I think the key probably is, if I have orders, like to be more organized. But then there's some days that I'll just be like, I just really need to be by myself and just get out of my headspace. And then sometimes it's relaxing. It just depends on the day, really.
Well, of course. But do you do the kids get involved in the baking and stuff?
Yeah, my daughter loves baking. Like, she would just stand up on the chair and stay with me all the time if she could. She loves it. I went to pick her up from crash like a couple of weeks ago, and the teacher said to me, like, she's only 3.5. The teacher said to me, she asked to go into the kitchen today. And I was like, what? Yeah, she asked to go into the kitchen with the chef and help make lunch.
Ah,
And
that's
so she
lovely.
went in and helped make lunch
Did
in the
she?
kitchen. So, yeah, she
Oh, what a
did.
great school.
So she does. She loves being in the kitchen.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, because it's something you see on like social media and stuff with kids involved with baking, and it's something that's really nice that it's kind of still going on, I suppose. I don't know why it would have stopped, but it seemed like, those kind of nice things seem to have stopped. But obviously they haven't, and it's really lovely to kind of see. I wonder, like, but again, like the pressure that, like, because if people know your friends and family, right, you know that you're very good at baking, or like if
Hmm.
do they wreck your head about it? Like, is there any requests given or anything, or are they very respectful of the fact that you have to
No,
do it all day?
not really.
Okay,
Like I live like I live 2 hours away from,
right.
none of my family live in Donegal. Um, so I'm never really down here, to be honest. I just don't get the time. Like obviously I was back in college 2 days a week and then was working the other 5 days a week. So I really haven't got time to come down here. If there's a birthday or whatever, I
Mm.
will always offer. Like
Yeah.
they will never have to ask me. I will just offer, like, if there's a communion cake, oh, I'll do her communion cake if she wants me to do it, or I'll do mom's birthday cake. But honestly, they never pressure me into it. So it's more my partner that
I
pressures me.
bet. I bet. Yeah.
If there's
Yeah.
nothing sweet in the house, he's like, oh, do you want to make some cookies or
Yeah. I
you
could
make a
fully.
brownie?
I mean, I'm kind of on his side with that because I think I would be exactly the same. Because you're so good at doing it. That's the way it is. Do you actually? What I told you about my limited ability at cooking, but like my the best dish that I could cook is spaghetti bolognese, because it's my favorite dinner, and when you kind of
Yeah.
that you're gonna be good at that. What is your like best um pastry or dessert that you cook?
Oh, um, oh, that's a hard one.
You see, you cook, so that's you're able to do so many. I can do like three, so it's easy to pick my best.
I probably cupcakes, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I just do them so often. Cupcakes or cake. Um,
they're hard to do. Like, it's funny. Isn't it funny though about cake, for instance? I think you can just throw it together and it's done. But then the amount of times you go to a kid's birthday party or a birthday party in general, and there's cake there and it's horrible. Like, it's too dry,
yeah,
or
I know.
there's a big skill in doing cakes properly.
There is, and there's actually like one of the girls that works alongside me in work, like she detests making cakes. She's a pastry chef, like, and she
Oh,
detests
really?
making cakes. And there's stuff that she does that I
Mm.
can't stand doing either. And she's like, I don't understand like how you just can make that and enjoy it, like, and it's fine. And I'm like, I don't know how you can make that and enjoy it and it's
Yeah,
fine. So it's just like, I think that's kind of my best area is cakes and cupcakes.
but what's fantastic, I think, about baking now, and I haven't seen an awful lot of the British Bake Off, but I've seen bits. Everybody's seen bits and pieces of the Great British Bake Off, but it is becoming more popular for people to do on their time, their days off, or their downtime. And it is, people are realizing that, I talk to people who've taken up knitting during COVID, and people who've taken up all sorts of things that they never thought they'd do, but then realize how important it is for them to have that kind of outlet. And it is great to, even if you're not into the actual program, I think it's great to see that people are kind of latching on to something that they do enjoy doing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I 100% agree with you. I think everyone took a step back in COVID and was
Mhm.
just like, work is not the be all and end all of it, because it's not.
Mhm.
Like there you go, the country shut down for nearly the guts of 2 years, and all we had was family
Mhm.
and whoever was in our households. And I think we kind of just explored a little bit like what we can be doing to make memories more than anything else. And that's where everyone, like there was so many people that took up baking that
Yeah.
even I know, um, and different things like painting and, as you said, knitting and stuff like that. And it's nice to see, like it's nice to see that, because we kind of all came offline a little bit more,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like a whole show. Like social media can be just like, where is this person going? What are they doing today? And I think we all just kind of took a step back and just realized what's important. And that's when people kind of started doing those kind of things again, which is nice to see.
No, it's brilliant. And I think it's interesting, like we say, like everybody took a step back from online, and the fact that nobody was able to go anywhere and kind of do things, there was no content to put out there for people. And then you're right though, but
No,
it was
like we were taking pictures in our bedrooms, like
yeah,
that.
it was like, of what,
Really?
it was like, it was such a bizarre, I obviously had this going, so I was able to kind of put out content for this, but it was, I'm not a person who travels a lot and gets those lovely like snapshots of like you're getting this week, but that whole thing wasn't part of my online side. But it was interesting to see where people would they were led somewhere, and whether it was baking or whether it was like writing, and like you said, all the different things you said, painting and stuff, they were led somewhere where they never thought they'd end up. But it was really great that they kind of found it. I wanted to ask, like, why did you, obviously you spoke very well about mental health earlier on in the episode, but you have on your Instagram page about mental health advocate. Why did you, like, because for some people that's quite a big thing to put it in there, and then obviously for other people it's just, well, that's what I am, so that's why I put it there.
Yeah, I guess it is what I am. Like, I try and speak openly on my page about mental health. And I think especially in lockdown, I think because like I feel like the rest of the world in lockdown experienced some sort of mental health. And I was just like, I was fine for like kind of once in my life. I was like, I'm actually okay, because I experience this on a daily basis, and everyone else was like having mental breakdowns, and I was like, no, I'm fine. And it's funny, like there was so many people that actually reached out to me over that period of time, like people that, one person in particular that I had been friends with, that actually ended our friendship because of my mental health. And then she was experiencing it, and she kind of was like, I'm so sorry, like I thought anxiety didn't exist, and now I'm realizing it. And yeah, I just try and be as open as possible. And just, I think that tagline on my profile, it just, if anyone's ever needing to talk to someone, it just lets them know that it's okay to message me or whatever, and talk about it, because sometimes that's just what you need, like, really. But yeah, I think there's a lot of, as I said before, like fronts on social media, and I don't like to be that, because I mean, you can scroll online, and even I do it on a daily basis, and it can be like, oh, I should be somewhere else doing something else with someone else, and I'm doing the wrong thing or whatever. And that's why I try and be as real as I can. And even when I'm having a bad day on social media, like, I don't do it as often as I should, because I'm not really as active on it as I used to be. But like, I come on and talk, and I don't care about crying in my stories or coming on after having a panic attack, because it just shows people that it's normal.
Yeah.
Because everyone puts up their highlights, and I don't think that's right sometimes, because, as I said, then people, it's not real. And people think there's something wrong then when they are having a bad time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really why it's there.
No, but it's brilliant, and I'm seeing it more and more, and those, like, just having those three words up there, it does reassure people that you are the person that they can reach out to if they need to. They may never have to reach out to someone, which
Exactly, yeah.
which is what we hope for. But the fact that those words are there and people are able to reach out, there was I mentioned this on the podcast before. It could have been a good while ago now, but there was a bit that you mentioned about when you were in lockdown and everybody else started to feel anxious and you were feeling grand, and I was the same, like, and I was trying to figure out, like, why am I, why do I feel quite comfortable in this, situation?
Yeah.
And I read a piece by the author John Ronson, and he's anxiety as well, but he wrote about the idea that people who have anxiety before the lockdown felt much calmer now, because they could turn around and say, well, this is exactly what we were planning for. This is, we were feeling this all the time because we felt something bad was coming along, which is obviously what anxiety really is. It's the
Yeah, so
idea
very
of the
valid
future.
point.
So like John Ronson, his explanation was perfect. I said it to someone, like a few people agree, and I said it to someone, and they were like, "That's not it at all." And I was like, "Well, well, maybe it is. I don't know." It's just really like dismissive of it. But I was like, "Well, you never experienced anxiety, so it's hard to join in on that conversation, you know." But yeah, it's an interesting one, and during those, it's another thing actually. During those 2 years and months, whatever, however many months it was, like people watched more TV and they watched more films and they maybe read more books or whatever it might be. Um, do you watch? This is a beautiful transition. Do you watch cooking shows at all?
Yeah, I love
Okay,
MasterChef,
okay.
particular, yeah.
I don't like your man. That's not. It's not that I don't like him. I don't know him. Which is the guy?
It's the Australian one that I watch. I don't
Oh,
like the
okay.
British one or the Irish one or the American
Okay,
one.
let me ask you this, right? Because this is interesting because nobody's ever brought this up. My housemate, she watches the Australian one, and
Yeah,
I would sit
we'd
downstairs
get
with,
on well.
yeah, you'd love it. You'd be glued to it. But
Yeah,
I was sitting down there with a couple of times, and there's three people, three hosts,
yeah.
judges. You know the guy, he's Scottish.
Is he Scottish?
Yeah, you know, like he's always wears the suit.
Yeah.
Well, he says he's Scottish, but he Jock is his name, isn't it?
Are we watching a different MasterChef?
No, it's definitely the Australian lad. It's definitely because
These must be, are they the new chefs? I don't think I've got that far.
oh, maybe they are, because there's like there's an Aussie there. Well, there's two Aussies there, and then there's the Scottish guy. But I like have a look into him because he's. I was kind of going. He always carries these things in his hand, like they're like wooden. They're not rosary beads, but they kind of look like rosary beads, right? So he's selling them like for like 100 quid each or something. Pure chancer, this fella. Like he's like he's been bankrupt like 2 or 3 times, and I don't know how he ended up on MasterChef. But we now it's saying we were watching this a couple of years ago. Maybe they're new or old. I don't really know. But I'm gonna. Do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna send you after this, right? Everybody can look this up, but I'm gonna send you the story of this dude, and he's a fascinating character, but I think he's a bit dodgy, and I don't think Australia. I don't think Australia have caught on to him yet. I think
Right.
he's like we were questioning whether he was Scottish at all, whether he was just using that because his name is Jock. Like it's the most Scottish kind of name you could choose, and I think he's a bit of a shyster for me. But I find the reason I asked the question about the TV show and that because I coach jiu-jitsu, and I hate watching and like looking up clips or
Yeah.
because again it is that busman's holiday, I suppose, again, like, but I suppose a slightly different view if you are searching for recipes or new ideas and stuff like that. They can come from watching shows like the
Yeah.
MasterChef.
Yeah, exactly. I don't particularly like the Bake Off or anything like that.
Right.
It's strange. It is just literally Australian MasterChef. And then there's been a few Netflix program, like there's a chocolatier one and stuff like that. They just give you like ideas for
Mm.
specials and learning new things and stuff. That's really why I watch them more than anything else.
I love the things. Well, I don't love them. I don't watch them, but when you see the finished results of when they have to build the big, like, I don't know what the name of the program is. It could be a Netflix thing, but they have to build this big tower of dessert, and then half the time they end up dropping it or it falls apart or stuff. It's
Heartbreaking.
I can't I can't imagine because everybody's seen those clips on from the Bake Off where like they drop it or it didn't harden in the freezer or whatever it might be. And the
Yeah.
stress levels,
Oh,
this
it's so stressful.
I can't like,
There's
especially
been there's been a
what.
couple of times that obviously I work in a hotel,
Mm,
and there's been a couple of times that people have brought in their wedding cakes,
oh,
or someone's delivered a wedding cake and dropped,
right.
or it's in
Oh,
the car. And I've had to fix someone's wedding cake like a few times because of that. And I'm just like, it's the wedding cake. Like, be careful with it.
but let
Yeah,
me ask this, Ria,
it's
because
stressful.
this is kind of, I suppose this is the big question, really. How is somebody who has admitted they had anxiety growing up and through their teens and stuff like that, even though I know you love baking and stuff, but how have you decided to take on a job that has so much? I don't even want to step in one of those kitchens. I don't know how you've Are you balancing something out here
I
that I'm
don't
not?
know. Like,
Okay.
I don't know. I guess as well, it comes back to that me, like, I need to be in a busy job.
Hmm.
I like to keep my head busy. Like, I've worked in different places where you basically sit and do nothing. And I hated that because, like, I constantly have to be active and my brain needs to keep going. Otherwise, I'll sit and start thinking about stuff,
Mm.
overthinking stuff, and then you get anxious and then you have panic attacks.
Yeah.
So that is literally, that's down to it. It's like a job to keep me busy and on my feet and keep my hands going. Like I wouldn't, I don't think my job like increases my anxiety.
Hmm.
Um, it's more stress and orientated sometimes than anything else. I don't think stress and anxiety are the same thing.
No.
Like when it comes to stuff like wedding cakes, like I done my friend's wedding cake there last week and I had to travel with it for 2 hours in the car.
All right. Yeah.
Like stuff like that stresses me out. And that will be like, oh my God. But other than that, no,
Yeah.
I don't. I think it is just literally like keep my mind busy. And that's just the type of person I like. I couldn't sit in an office or have an office job.
Mm.
Just not for me.
Yeah, I get you. Like, it doesn't make sense. And, I've said this about jujitsu. It's one of those things where when you're in the middle of something that involves a lot of thinking and, almost like survival, you're not thinking about the anxiety of the future at that point. It's in the now.
Exactly. It's the now. Yeah.
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 And that's not,
Exactly. That's it.
takes it away, I suppose. Obviously you like bacon, but what else do you like to do in your spare time? Now I know you have kids as well, and it's very difficult to find, I'm sure, to find spare time. But what would you like to do ideally?
I like to go to the gym and I love the beaches and walking and going hill walking,
Good
mountain
spot.
climbing, just finding new places, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, I used to do a lot of cycling, but it was something me and my dad done. I lost him a couple of years and I haven't really got back into it.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, just gym and
Are you like
adventures really.
are you like weights or more
Yeah.
cardio weights?
Yeah. As I said, I used to work in a CrossFit gym,
Hmm.
so I used to do CrossFit, not a cardio person. I used to run like all the time and like I couldn't do a 5K now to save my life.
What
I'm more weight based, I think.
I'm kind of the opposite. Obviously, I do CrossFit as well, but I'm more. I really look forward to doing the kind of WODs over the strength classes. Like, but I think it might be just there's more technical stuff with the weights, to make sure that obviously you don't want to get injured, make sure you have to lift as heavy as possible. Whereas with the cardio, you just like get on that bike and cycle and then go over there and do some like squats. You know what I mean? To me, it's
Yeah.
very easy. It's just like do this, do that. But it is interesting talking to different people for the different reasons why they might like choose cardio over weights or the other way around. Um, I do like deadlifting because I think that's
Mhm.
maybe a bit easier. I don't know. Is it?
You see, I think cardio is so much harder than weights. Like I'd
Yeah.
honestly do like 3 hours of weights before I would go and run on a treadmill for 10 minutes.
3 hours of weights.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You'd be dead after 3 hours of weights. It's an awful amount of weight. It's an awful
I'm
amount
just
of
saying.
Yeah. Oh, look. I know why people hate the assault bikes. I know why people like. There's certain machines that don't like going on, and like I get it. I get it. But I suppose it's whatever you're into, really. It's just.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like I don't mind like I'd rather walk up a hill or do
Mm,
a mountain than walk on a treadmill. I just find it a bit boring.
yeah.
I think then when you're lifting weights, you're concentrated on something
Yeah.
because if you're concentrated on your form, obviously, and how you're lifting it and if you're doing it okay. Um, and so when you're just like running on a treadmill or walking on a stairmaster, it's just like, oh, this is a bit like boring.
I would never. I agree with you on that. I would never use a treadmill or anything
Stairmaster.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like I've had a couple of knee injuries recently, so I haven't been able to run. Running's like my favorite thing to do, and but outside obviously, and was able to go out this morning for kind of a walk, very light run for 6 kilometers, and it was just kind of, it's like it opens up the third eye. I don't even believe in the third eye, so I don't know why I use that analogy, but we'll just say, all right, because people will understand. It's the only thing I can think of, but it's the idea of it does open something up, like when you come back. And look, people get the same thing from lifting weights, it's just, but I got that like this morning and I'd missed it because it had been so long. And I really hope the knees clear up soon enough so I can get back on it, because then we'll be back. But I agree. Climbing a mountain and stuff like that is a lot for me. I live in the flattest county in Ireland, so it's, we don't even have a mound in Westmeath, but you live in a good old spot to go for those walks.
Yeah, Donegal is all hills.
I'm guessing your partner is into that as well.
No, he's not actually. No, he's the complete opposite. Hates the beach, hates any.
Hates the beach. You can't hate the beach.
He hates the beach. I'm telling you, he made me believe that he liked it when we were like
classic
friends. Yeah. And he hates the beach. He hates anything outdoorsy.
Okay. Well, look, that's.
I'm just my own wolf. I just go myself. I enjoy it. Well, like sometimes like the girls come with me, but it's mainly by myself. But that's my outlet, really.
But isn't that like for me, I'd say it's almost a better thing, because again, you're with your partner when you're at home all the time, and then you're in work, you're doing stuff. So to be able to get out there, and that's what my run is. It's clear my head on my own.
Yourself, your own time, your own space. Yeah. Definitely.
I couldn't run with anyone, like, because the idea of having to run and talk to someone is no interest in that. Like, I don't want to. I want to like listen to a podcast, listen to some music or whatever, but just be out there. I live like right next to a bog, so I run on the road through the bog, and it's just very peaceful, and it's just nice. But I think it's important to get out there and do that. But it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Ria. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me on.
No, no need to thank me at all. But if you wouldn't mind, could you stick around for a minute? I'll close it out. I just want to take a picture of the screen. It's
okay.
It's a routine now. It's pure OCD at this point. But I'm building. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build up a collection of them. I have them all, like pictures. I'm going to put it
on your wall.
Yeah, put it there. Like I'm going to cut myself out of every one. I'm not a lunatic, but I'm going to have like the 100 whatever it is guests up there. I think it'd be a nice little.
Yeah, I know. Cool.
Yeah, to add on to it. Maybe not take down the poster. Maybe put there some. But let me finish this out. I'm just waffling, right? Okay. I also want to thank John for the technical side of things. I always thank my mom and dad, my granddad during Calvin, because they did help me set this up and all that. Subscribe to our YouTube if you would. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Spotify, Apple, Anchor, and Google Podcasts for all the podcast side of things. And obviously, thanks to everyone for watching. I hope you had fun. Ria, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. See you, as the title suggests of the podcast. See you next week. Take care. Bye.